So finally we come to the poem that everybody seems to hate and or just not want to be on the exam paper. But it's actually a really straightforward poem, and it contains an awful lot of stuff that you can use should a suitable question arise. The first thing to note is the fact that the poet is a woman, and this links to the fact that the subject of the poem is a woman. And if you look back through the anthology, you'll see that a fair proportion of the poems written about conflict are from women. And what's the point here? That the point is that conflict is universal. It's not the traditional idea that conflict just affects the men who go and fight it. It's what happens to the people who are left behind. However, this is different, because in this poem, the woman in the poem is a soldier. So we get a slightly different perspective. So the second thing to say here is that war is universal. It affects everybody, but it's also timeless. This poem refers to the past, but is also, as it says on the first page, set in a future war, which is interesting because it's Stevie Smith projecting, thinking about the way the world is going to go, and coming to the conclusion that it will continue in the same way it's always been, which is that we will always be in conflict, but that women will join that conflict. They will be on the front line, and this is different to the other poems that we've read from a military point of view. So the title, "Come On, Come Back," in quotation marks, is repeated throughout, and later on in the poem it talks about the fact that she had sung it to march into Austerlitz. And so "Come On, Come Back," when you think about it, is a great song for war. A great song to be sung when on the way to face the bullets and the bombs, because you want to come back. So it's an incident in a future war, which carries with it an awful lot of weight and meaning. The form of the poem is unpredictable. It's rambling. It doesn't. It could quite easily have been a ballad. It could easily have been a ballad, but she doesn't do that. She's chosen not to do that. It's rambling. It's unpredictable. There is rhyme, but it's unpredictable again. There's half rhyme and there's internal rhyme, and that sense that there is a feeling of the correct through rhyme, but because it doesn't happen in a formal way, that it's interrupted constantly, which is a metaphor of conflict. There's a chronology to this as well. It's chronological. We start with a metaphor of the ebbing tide, and we all should get that. Why do people like being by the sea? What do we know about the tide? An ebbing tide leaves, and when a tide goes, it leaves things behind. Rubbish, detritus. It leaves things that nobody wants, really. And left by the ebbing tide of battle on the field of Austerlitz, the girl soldier Vaudeville sits. Her fingers tap the ground. She is alone at midnight in the moonlight. She is sitting alone on a round, flat stone. It's a beautiful stanza. It's probably, of all the poems, that stanza is amazing. The internal rhyme, her fingers tap the ground. She is alone at midnight in the moonlight. She is sitting alone on a round, flat stone. So there is a sense of rhythm. There's a sense of beauty within it, but she has been left by the ebbing tide of battle, which implies that the others are dead. Yeah, or that she's been left behind in some way. But as a metaphor, it's fantastic. And if you think at the end of the poem, it talks about the fact she steps into the water. So we go from the metaphorical water to the literal water. The icy, amorous embrace dives with her, swiftly severing the waters which close above her head. So the physical water, the real water, takes her life. She dies. But at the beginning, water is used metaphorically. And after that quite beautiful opening stanza, you get something far less beautiful, something quite scary. You've got exterminators, a Memel conference. Conference, there's nothing romantic or appealing about a conference. ML5 has left her just alive. Only her memory is dead forevermore. She fears and cries, ah me, why am I here? Sitting alone on a round flat stone on a hummock there. So again you get that internal rhyme, a great rhythm. Only her memory is dead. Why am I here? And this links to so many of the other poems, that the sense of the person within a conflict, bemused, confused, just wanting to be somewhere else. But the implication is that this is the effect of some sort of chemical weapon that has left her just alive. ML5 has left her just alive, which is a lovely bit of rhyme, but it's sort of out of place. The violence of this stanza is diminished by some of the nicer language later on, but she's in a state of confusion, so she isn't really able to analyse this correctly. Rising, staggering over the ground she goes, over the seeming miles of rutted meadow, to the margin of a lake. The sand beneath her feet is cold and damp and firm to the waves' beat. So again, there's a brilliant rhythm to this poem, but it's almost only because she's in an altered state of mind. The fact is, she's walking to her death, cold and damp and firm to the waves' beat. She's going towards that lake, and we get another sense, a margin of a lake. Think back to at the border. A margin is the edge of something. The border is the edge of something. It's the threshold between where you want to be and where you are. The fact that she is really on the verge of escape, and the only way for her to escape is to feel the embrace of the icy water. And quickly, as a child, an idiot, as one without memory, she strips her uniform off, stands and plunges into the icy waters of the adorable lake. So again we get the language in this is phenomenal. The contrast between the adorable lake, but the icy waters, the adorable lake, and what we know she's going to do. But again, a child, the innocent, an idiot, the innocent, one without memory. This links to so many of the other poems that really, if it comes up, it's something to be glad about rather than to be fearful of. Again, the imagery goes on. A ribbon of white moonlight, and it makes you think of the highwayman, the ribbon. This could be a ballad, but it isn't. The waters on either side of the moony track are black as her mind's. So incredibly negative use of language. Her mind is as secret from her as the water on which she swims. She's lost her mind. She's confused. As secret, as profound, as ominous. And the language here, this is about the future of conflict. This is about the fact that Stevie Smith fears for humanity, because we lose our minds, and it's profound and it's ominous. It suggests that we are in trouble. And the language continues, weeping bitterly for her ominous mind, her plight, up the river of white moonlight, fantastic use of language. She swims unto the treacherous undercurrent, seizing her in an icy, amorous embrace. Again, the oxymoron there. The icy, amorous, the icy love embrace. Dives with her, swiftly severing. It's an incredibly aggressive word. Severing the waters which close behind her. So we have this confusion of the juxtaposition of the harsh language with the sensual language. These amazing images of white moonlight juxtaposed with plight. So the rhyme there emphasizes the difference, the conflict, the effect of this conflict. An enemy sentinel, finding the abandoned clothes, waits for the swimmer's return. Come on, come back. Waiting, whiling away the hours. So he's waiting, watching, singing this song, whittling a shepherd's pipe from hollow reeds. So there's a sense of normality there. He sees the clothes, he's confused, he's waiting for somebody to come back. In the chill light of dawn, ring out the pipe's wild notes. Come on, come back. So there's the song's universal. They're both soldiers. He's waiting for the return. Never happens. Vaudeville, in the swift and subtle current's close embrace, sleeps on, stirs not, hears not the familiar tune. Favourite of all the troops, of all the armies, favourite of Vaudeville, for she had sung it too, marching to Austerlitz. Come on, come back. So the point of this poem is the futility of war. The fact that soldiers are soldiers. They like the same song, but when they're told to fight, they fight to the death. And you can link that to so many of the poems that we have. There's a repetition to the poem. There's a brilliant use of rhyme and half rhyme, and a fantastic contrast in language between the aggressive and the sensual.